Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. And now that the PlayStation 5 Pro has been out for a full week, we're starting to grasp what it's capable of and also what it isn't capable of. And one of the big stories that's been making the rounds seems to have given some fans the impression that Sony either misled consumers or flat out lied to them into believing the Pro is more capable than what it actually is. I, however, do have a PS5 Pro myself, so I feel like I can actually give some insights on what's really happening here, and I think it's important to understand what the expectation for each type of game should be. So stay tuned for all of that, and I'll let you know if PlayStation actually lied. And then we'll also talk about a new Xbox advertising campaign that has definitely created a lot of conversation online. As we know, Xbox's messaging doesn't always hit home with the hardcore community, but at the same time here, I'm really not all that shocked about this campaign, nor do I think it's as big of a deal as some people are making it out to be. Let's just go and get right into things, though, starting off with the Game Awards. Jeff Keighley's Game Awards is a little bit less than a month away, set for December 11th, which means that we should expect a wave of news over the next couple of weeks. Of course, make sure to subscribe if you want to keep up to date with all of that, but this does include its nominees. In fact, he just announced that the nominees will be revealed next week on November 18th. Now, personally, I've never really been a big fan of how they schedule the Game Awards. For one, I think people kind of treat this showcase as the be-all, end-all, and I really don't think that it should be. I mean, they advertise it as a celebration for the best games of each given year, but, I mean, when you really think about it, it's kind of just their choices for the first 10 months of the year. Games that release in November and December don't even really qualify to be in his show, and that means, let's just kind of hypothetically say if something like Stalker 2 or Indiana Jones, they come out in a couple of weeks, well, if those games are amazing, it doesn't really matter because they don't qualify despite them being 2024 games. So I've always kind of felt like they should do the Game Awards in January, actually have every game that releases in 2024 qualify. I don't know. I feel like Jeff wants this showcase to be more like an E3 for the holiday period, but that's just my opinion. Maybe you feel differently, but out of all the games that do qualify, just a few potential nominees that we could see next week includes Astrobot, ReFantazio, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, there's Wukong, there's Dragon's Dogma 2, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Stellar Blade, Helldivers 2, and even Silent Hill 2. I know there was some controversy last year about Resident Evil 4 because, it's a remake rather than a brand new game, but we could see a repeat of that conversation this year with yet another remake being Silent Hill 2. I mean, I'll tell you right now, it's definitely a good game, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. But let me hear your predictions in the comments below and what your game of the year has been so far. Oh, and we do have a few big releases set for today, one being Dragon Quest III HD, which we talked about yesterday, has an 85 overall score on Metacritic, and it sounds like it's a really good game. Unfortunately, though, Sony's new game, LEGO Horizon Adventure, isn't faring quite as well, or at least in terms of its critical reception. As you can see here, it has a 71 overall score on Metacritic with a total of 84 reviews, and I mean, its scores are just kind of all over the place. A lot of reviewers like it, and they praised it for its humorous take on the Horizon series, and then others just absolutely hated it. The lowest review right now is from Eurogamer, and they gave it a 4 out of 10 because according to them, it's too simple for adults and too quote-unquote one note to convert kids, which, I mean, when I first heard about LEGO Horizon, and maybe this is just me, but I never once thought that the target audience was for adults. Just like every other LEGO game before it, it's clearly made for kids, or at least in my opinion. And more so, I'm not even entirely convinced that they're trying to convert kids to the mainline series. To me, I think because Horizon has just such a cool setting, and because, kids love dinosaurs, I feel like the idea here was for a more child-friendly adventure that can play into that imaginative setting that kids might enjoy. Now, maybe the execution isn't perfect, but my view is that it's just a more family-friendly take on a creative setting that could, yes, appeal to your children. Now, that's only my opinion, but the overall results here paints Sony's first ever LEGO adventure game as just simply okay and not anything necessarily special. Now, here's something interesting. Of course, Microsoft now owns Call of Duty as a part of their Activision Blizzard acquisition, which is still kind of crazy to think about. But there's now been rumors going around that they're going to take full advantage of that with different Xbox IP collaborations. This was posted up on Insider Gaming, where they said, new leaks have surfaced online claiming that Call of Duty Black Ops 6 will soon feature collaborations between Halo, Doom, and Gears of War. The new leaks have surfaced from several Call of Duty data miners who generally have a good track record of data mining leaks. Such details were soon corroborated by leaker Special Nick, who had apparently heard of such crossovers in January of 2024. So, I mean, if this is true, which honestly, it does make sense because it would be the smart move for Microsoft to make. It would immediately give their other games more recognition, just considering how popular the Call of Duty games are. But more so, it would really just be a cool collaboration for us gamers. I mean, all of these games are among some of the greatest shooters of all time, and the idea that you could have them all face up against each other in a single game, that's pretty awesome to think about. I mean, Master Chief versus Doomguy versus Marcus Phoenix. I'm all for that. Now, this is only a rumor for right now, though, but I definitely mark it as one of the more believable claims that we've heard online. Okay, so let's go and talk about the PS5 Pro, though, because there's been some review headlines that paints it in less than a desirable position. In fact, some of these headlines might even imply that PlayStation lied to consumers. But yes, headlines can sometimes be misleading, and I think that's kind of what's happening right now. Now, I'm not trying to convince anybody that the PS5 Pro is worth $700 to $800. That's for a different topic. Personally, I think it's a little too high for the vast majority of people. But for those that are on the fence, those are the people that I think needs to understand what you're actually getting out of the PS5 Pro and what the numbers actually mean. So this was posted up by WCCF Tech, and they said PlayStation 5 Pro Game Boost falls short of promised 45% performance increase, likely due to memory bandwidth constraints. So this has led to a pretty loud response that Sony misled or even lied to their customers and that they're not delivering on their promises. But that's not actually what's happening here. I feel like I'm usually pretty fair when it comes to assessing controversial topics rather than just blowing things out of the proportion for the sake of it. And in this case, Sony didn't actually promise a 45% increase for every single game like this headline kind of indicates. In the PS5 Pro presentation, if you paid attention, what they actually said is that the PS5 Pro can offer up to 45% faster rendering. The keywords are up to. So in other words, not every game will actually reach that 45% improved boost. That's just the potential. In fact, in the actual article, WCCF Tech clarified the situation by saying, speaking during the latest episode of their weekly podcast, Digital Foundry commented on the system's features delivering so far only a 30%, 35% improvement in titles that did not receive a PS5 Pro enhanced patch. And that's probably the most important part to understand here. These boosts that you're seeing are for unpatched games. The games that you'll see the biggest improvements for will be for official PS5 Pro enhanced games, and currently, there's just a lot of games that's yet to receive an official patch. Now, hopefully, that will change in the coming months with more patches. As an example, though, I've been playing Silent Hill 2 this past week on a PlayStation 5 Pro. This is an unpatched game. And what I'll say here is that it is better than the base PS5 game, which had some pretty wonky frame rate dips. The PS5 Pro is an improved version, but it's still not 100% perfect. There are times that it still drops in frame rate. Now, that's probably not the greatest look for a console that costs $700, but at the same time, it's not as bad as the base game, but it is still an issue that pops up from time to time. Now, maybe they can fix that with an official PS5 Pro enhancement later down the road. Crossing my fingers for that. But what you basically need to understand here is that not every game will receive a 45% boost, and the most noticeable improvements will be for games that receives an official PS5 Pro enhancement patch, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as one such example. That game received a significant improvement over the base PS5 version. So for anybody who's interested in the PS5 Pro, what I can say is that it does improve frame rate for unpatched games that previously had problems, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be perfect for every single game. At the end of the day, let's just kind of hope that more games gets those pro patches sooner rather than later, because those are the ones that are seeing the biggest improvements thus far. Now, one last thing before we go, though, Xbox has created quite a bit of buzz today as well, and this is because of their new advertising campaign, quote-unquote, "What is an Xbox?" I'll go and run the ad here, and you can see that they play into the idea that almost all of your devices is an Xbox, because they can play Xbox games, whether that be through something like Game Pass or even through the cloud. So now they're making it loud and clear that your TV with a Fire Stick is an Xbox. Your phone is an Xbox. Your PC is an Xbox. And of course, yes, your Xbox is still an Xbox. Now, they are going heavy into this ad. They've already launched Xbox merchandise with this slogan, which I'll say is kind of interesting, just because this campaign hasn't exactly been met with a lot of rejoice. Instead, there's a lot of people that finds it to be a confusing message in the essence. What does this mean for the future of their console business? This has been the number one question for them throughout 2024, as some of their games are now multi-platform. Not all of them, but, they do have this multi-platform, but not completely multi-platform approach. And what I'll say is I don't know if this ad here helps answer that question, but I'll also say is that I think people are kind of blowing this ad out of proportion. My thing about this is that this message isn't really anything new from Xbox. They've been pushing this idea since 2019 or maybe even earlier than that. Xbox Cloud Gaming has been around for a long time, and they've been launching all of their games on PC since the Xbox One days. So their idea is that you can play Xbox games on a number of devices, and we've known that for a long, long time. This is not new information. I guess if anything here, they're just kind of making sure that's public information for the masses. But yeah, I don't think this actually changes much from what we already knew in the first place. I think in some ways, you can even argue that this is the future for the game industry as a whole. Even PlayStation has become more open to the idea of PC games, albeit not day one for the majority of their releases. They also have cloud gaming, and it honestly wouldn't shock me if Sony eventually pushes that message further. So, at the end of the day, I think people are kind of making a bigger deal out of this than it should be. By all indication, Xbox is still working on console hardware. They just confirmed that they have a handheld in development, and they previously said that their next Xbox will be the largest leap in a console generation. So assuming that those will make it to the market, then, this is them just kind of giving their consumers a large number of options to play their games. I don't know. Let me know what you all think about all of this. Do you like this ad, or do you think Xbox is out of pocket? All opinions are welcome in the comments below. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to hit that subscribe button and peace out.